So this is a big thing, and there needs to be a lot of community participation with this thing. But the point of a members-based organization is it's very easy for community members to join. Over 200 have already joined Intersect. Many more will, and that organization is just kind of growing. And the point is, it's owned and operated and run by the members. It's not for profit members space, and the goal of it is just to bring everybody together and have a place where they can actually talk about things. So it goes from the working groups to the SIPs to the actual implementations, and there's an authorizing function either for an aggregation of things or for individual things, depending upon the nature of those things. We already have a really good, hard-fought operating system for how to think about product and how to structure working groups. So step one is just to port that system over here as a starting point, and then what will have to happen is the system will have to be customized to meet the needs of a members-based organization, Intersect, and this is an open process. Now, there is a question of how do we attract open source commitments, open source developers? So what we want to do is we want to have a situation where a lot of external contributors, once these Intersect repos are open, make contributions. And so one of the things that we're batting around right now, we're going to talk to partners like Emergo and the foundation, as well as the members of Intersect, is an idea of 4 courses that once you complete them, you get certificates that are posted on the Cardano blockchain, and something to cover Haskell, something to cover Agda, something to cover open source best practices. So these are specific practices to how software is made on the repo, and then a Mastering Cardano course. And the basic idea is you establish a technical baseline showing you know how to read and actually work on the code. You establish a baseline for how everybody works together in the system, and then you establish a baseline for how Cardano works under the hood. The network protocol, extended UTXO, how Plutus works, how Ouroboros works, all the APIs, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, these types of things get you up to speed as a core dev. So if they're designed correctly, you should be able to be in a position and demonstrate enough technical skill that you should deserve some credentials. So I like this because this is open and self-certifying. But it's merit-based. So you have a mechanism to prove you have the skills and knowledge, and anybody can do it. There's no gatekeeping function. And once it's done, you get a blockchain certificate, similar to how the Cardano Foundation is starting to do blockchain certificates for their educational materials. And then that translates to get credentials. You have to be very careful with these projects, and get credentials typically are a gatekeeping function, and whoever controls that, it's like the Arrakis of open source projects. He who controls the spice controls the universe. So he who controls credentials controls the universe. So if there's a collection of great content that we can build together that you can go through, then any person who wants to actually start working on Cardano has this. And then what you can do is look at the existing pool of developers and grandfather some in who've already been making major contributions to the system. So there would be an or, and they just have to decide what that or looks like. And who would decide that? The working groups and technical leadership of Intersect. And they'll ultimately have the final say who gets credentialed, who doesn't get credentialed. So what's nice here, though, is that you have a very good working structure where you have a consent engine where every single ADA holder now has a say on whether they think something is all right. And then you have an execution engine, which actually has a structure to allow anyone to become an open source participant and contribute to it. You have a way of creating a knowledge transfer so that there's people coming and going, but you always have content for that. And then you have an operating model that we figured out after the last 6 years, and that operating model is very hard fought, but it can reliably do releases in a 2 to 8 week period and structure a accountability structure where PI can be public, and every quarter you can kind of see what's going on, and you have one universal backlog. And this builds on a lot of the systems we've already, as a community, figured out together, like the SIP process, for example. It builds on that. So basically, we have a nice way of defining standards and change management, builds on how we've handled a universal backlog, and it can learn from things like how Hydra has been a very successful open source program. And then we get to do some cool new things like blockchain based certificates to get credentials. So you actually can drive some of the change of Cardano onto the blockchain itself.